What do we believe is in this letter, and why is it so important?
We already know a lot about the letter because Jacobs testified in court, and a lot of the letter was read into the courtroom testimony. We know that it alleges that Uber engaged in all kinds of things. It makes a wide array of allegations, some of which he walked back. So we should be careful with that. But we know at the very least that, for example, it alleges surveillance on competitors, on other riders, for example, and we know that is also that Uber engaged in some web scraping of competitors, so peeling information from foreign competitors about foreign competitors off the web.
So what has he walked back?
He has walked back very significantly the trade secrets claim. So he alleges that there was a group within Uber designed and built to steal trade secrets. This, of course, is what Waymo is most concerned about because it comes from the lawsuit in which Waymo is alleging that Uber stole their trade secrets. And pressed in court, Jacobs walked that back and said, you know what, I don't really know for sure. I don't have firsthand knowledge that trade secrets were stolen by this group. And it's just kind of ironic because that may prove actually useless, this letter to Waymo, but it exposes all these kinds of problems, some of which are true.
And how does this play into the now criminal investigation?
Well, so this comes from
there are a lot of investigations.
Yeah, I think Bloomberg has reported as many as 5. Mm-hmm. This comes from a criminal investigation. One of the criminal investigations that we know of is of possible trade secret theft from Waymo. However, we don't know that this letter is actually related to that particular criminal investigation. We don't know that.
Too many investigations to get.
Yeah, I think another important point to consider is there are about 1,000 people working on security at Uber. And so the idea that one person would have access to all of these different projects and would know about them with firsthand knowledge is also coming into question as we start to learn more about Jacobs. This idea that he would know about market analytics, but then he would also perhaps know about surveillance efforts based on governments is questionable. And so there's a lot of back and forth on how much he knew, how much would he have had firsthand knowledge of, as opposed to just overhearing things in the office and maybe taking them out of context.
Now, David, Uber 2.0, new Uber, that is, has said over and over again, we have new leadership, we are changing the way we do things, we are going to be more transparent. But how much do these old skeletons in the closet, if you will, hurt, the Uber of today?
Well, clearly the Waymo lawsuit continues to hurt the Uber of today. But I think if there's multiple lawsuits, probably more than we even know about, there is a macro question that's pretty hard to answer, which is how much will the old culture, even if it's now, dispensed with, going to hurt the future Uber? And my guess is it will hurt the future Uber considerably, despite the fact that its current leadership seems to be far more responsible in the way they're running the company.
So, Joel, how much will this letter hurt Uber versus help Waymo?
I think it hurts Uber a lot more than it helps Waymo for the reasons that David was talking about. It's like so you can see Uber trying to clean house, right, and to clean up these lawsuits and the litigation. But it's like every time there's another skeleton in the closet that reveals this whole new raft of problems. In this particular instance, I think it's important to point out that the competitors that the letter alleges surveillance of are foreign competitors. We're not talking about Lyft here. So we'll see how much of it pans out to be true. But so we're talking about Uber trying to get into foreign markets, right? Especially their problems in London, for example. Just as they're trying to make inroads in foreign markets, and really, they're desperate to do that. Those countries are going to learn about these practices of their companies based in those countries. It's a problem.
Their integrity, again, coming into question.
Right.
Olivia, I know you've been on the phone with sources all day long. How are people feeling about this within the company? How disruptive has this been, along with everything else that Uber has been dealing with?
Yeah, I think people that are close to Uber, they feel devastated by this because they feel like their job was to protect employees, to do everything that they could to protect Uber from other companies that they say were spying on them, and that was their intention. intention and that this is being taken out of context. But, violating a law is violating a law, whether or not you did it for benevolent reasons or to protect your own employees. So I think that they're going to have to deal with a lot of questions coming up, and it does sort of bubble up all these things that they have been doing behind the curtain, that they've been doing in secrecy, that may or may not have been illegal or may not have been ethical.
Now, David, obviously you've covered Silicon Valley and technology for many, many years. With Uber, I'm curious how Uber fits into the pantheon of Silicon Valley Shakespearean dramas. Every day there seems to be a new chapter that makes the whole tale even more dramatic. Does this cap them all, essentially?
Well, sadly, I think I would have to say that Uber appears to be just about the most unethical large company we've ever seen in Silicon Valley in its former incarnation. I think under Dara Khosrowshahi, it is clearly reforming, and I admire that. But the Uber that existed under Travis Kalanick was apparently a law-breaking organization, or certainly an unethical organization that took the risk of breaking the law very readily and did not abide by normal standards that we would consider what any company ought to abide by. And I think because of that, there are a lot of skeletons, as I said before, likely to continue coming out of this closet, which is tragic because it's a great company in terms of the service it provides.